All right, Chelsea fans, welcome back to another episode of London is Blue podcast. Welcome back to another episode of London is Blue podcast, a part of the Men in Blazers Media Network. My name is Brandon. As always, your host, joined by co-host Nick and Dan. And gentlemen, I wish I was bringing the good vibes back to back, but that is not the way it is going. This is the Sheffield United match review. Doomsday, Blues Days, the NBC Fan Fest was no friend of ours, Dan, even though we had many of the Music City Blues out in full force.
Yeah, they showed up. Chelsea did not. So kudos to the Music City Blues. Bad news from our Blues.
We had a lot of traveling fans, which is good to see. But Nick, coming off the midweek match, rolling into 20th place Sheffield, seemed like a straightforward task, albeit away. But yet, that's not the way the season's gone. It's a little bit more of the same, unfortunately.
Yeah, I said it on Twitter. There's a lot made of the dust up between Enzo Fernandez and Mason Mount. And I put something out that said essentially like all that matters going to get the next 3 points, not the showboating, not the gloating after the result, not any of the surface level BS. And here we are again talking about another disappointing draw that feels like a loss, and none of the result from Thursday really matters now because you, for the second time in 7 days, have drawn to a team in the bottom of the table and missed out on points that you should have had. So people will tell me that I'm negative, Brandon, but it's results-based business, and the results are not good.
No doubt. Let's go ahead and check the pulse of everybody with the good old 3-word match review. Dan, we've been hand selecting a few because again the responses to these are many.
Look, there were a lot of very, very on the nose ones. So I did try to sift through a few that were a little more creative than just fuck 3 times. But Millhouse starting off with no fun fest, as reference to the NBC Fan Fest earlier. We had Gilkey with the wasting another weekend. Jay with the singing many worries, because Chelsea do have a few more worries today than they did recently. Janique with the sheets always dirty. Tommy with the 4 points missed, to what Nick alluded to earlier. And CFC Apu with Bramall Payne Stadium.
Yeah, well done, Apu. I like that. I had to amend mine a little bit, but it's Stop Chasing Waterfalls. That's right, for you that grew up in the 90s, the good old TLC lyrics of Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls. For those of you who don't know, it's you just got to look, what does it mean? It's a metaphorical warning against pursuing self-destructive behavior, which is something that we are absolutely doing right now. So for those of you that are letting the lyrics roll through your heads right now, you're welcome. Blast down memory lane.
Go to YouTube to look off Brandon reading that little synopsis from Metacritic or wherever he got that from. That was pretty nice.
Oh, ChatGPT just loads in the Google results. Sounds great. Dan, what about you?
Like, I went with less of a cultural moment and went with definition of insanity. We're repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. And surprise, the different result has not occurred. And someone within this Chelsea ecosystem needs to say enough and pull the brakes to get things onto a different track. We don't even get going on the same track. Get onto the right track.
Understood. I mean, fair criticism there. Nick, lastly?
9 more matches. That's it. That's what we got left in the year. So I think we're all excited to see this out and get to the summer.
All right. Well, as always, we appreciate your 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you could subscribe on YouTube, maybe even hit the bell for notifications from us. We upload all of our pods quite regularly. Thanks, producer Jake. And then if you would, sign up for the London is Blue Dispatch, the weekly newsletter from Sam, CFC Central, and then join the conversation on Discord. It was Well, how about this? After these results, this is when you need to be in there for a little bit of group therapy. But let's dive in now. It was Sheffield United this past Sunday, the 7th of April, in the Premier League at Bramall Lane. In case you missed it, Sheffield United 2, Chelsea 2. Thiago Silva getting the unlikely start and goal in the 11th minute. Bogle equalizing in the 32nd, 66th minute. Madueke puts us back in the lead before the 90th +3 McBurney equalizer, which felt like a winner. So Dan, run us through the lineup, show it or tell us how we got to this situation.
Look, it was Petrovic between the sticks most of the time with Axel Disasi. Thiago Silva, as you mentioned earlier, going back into the 11, which was worth about 2 years on the average 11 rating. If you remember last game, it was like 23 something or 25.2. Trev Chalobah and Marco Correa as your back four with Moises Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, with Nani Madueke, Cole Palmer, Connor Gallagher, and Nicholas Jackson as your attacking blob at times. There's a lot of shifting in and out, a lot of players in positions that maybe didn't suit them as best as possibly could have. And look, it was Chukwuemeka and Mudryk who came in, and then it was Badiashile and Casadei who also saw themselves make it onto the pitch in the 90th minute, right before we gave up the equalizer. So 4 subs, all poorly timed, and not necessarily impacting the game in the most positive way. And you can find that in the stats, Brandon.
Yeah, we sure can. We're not going to have to dig far in this one. Look, Chelsea had a 0.37 XG. Sheffield United had a 1.36. All right, we had 67% of possession. We had 6 shots, 3 on target, 2 off target, 1 blocked. Sheffield, with 33% of the ball, had 11 shots, almost double what we had. They had 6 shots on target, which is double what we had, 3 off target, and 2 blocked. From there, we had 10 fouls to their 12, which equated to 4 cautions for them, 2 for us. And then we had 1 big chance. Sure, and we did not miss, right? So good. We got a goal off of our big chance. But again, with so little possession and everything, Sheffield United created 3 big chances, and they only missed 1 of them. So that's how that story goes, which is not great. And the one random stat essentially is just talking about how bad Chelsea are against lower level opposition teams. Letas on Discord broke it down and said points dropped this season against bottom half of the table teams so far. 20th place Sheffield United, we have 2 points. 19th place Burnley, 2 points. 11th place Wolves, 6. I'm sorry, that's what we've dropped. We've dropped 6 against them. 16th place Brentford, 5. 15th place Everton, 3. 17th place Nottingham Forest, 3. And 12th place Bournemouth, 2. That's, let's see, 2, 4, 10, 15, 18, 21, 23 points, Nick, that if we even had a fraction of those, completely turn around the season. And we're not even talking about the big 4, the big 5, the big 6.
Yeah, I love the parentheses so far because I think it plays into the future of where we're going to go here. Yeah, it's embarrassing. I mean, like, look, you have to win these games. Like, I think anybody walking into this season, for being just very honest about the state of play, could forgive losing to the top 6 in service of getting back to Europe and achieving our goals. These are all very, very winnable games. Like that, I think we've said multiple times, like the Premier League is not especially good this year. It's not especially impressive by any means. Like Wolves have been up and down and have taken all 6 off of us this year, for example, right? They've been okay, but nothing great. Nottingham Forest beat us at home. Brandon and I watched that from Brit's Pub in Minneapolis together. I remember that vividly. Like you look at Brentford, for example, a team that has struggled mightily this year. 5 points out of 6. Again, like, at some point you just have to look at what's going on here. And the 4 that you lose against Sheffield United and Burnley are killers. I put out a tweet earlier that said that going into this week, right, 3 matches in a week. I know it's a lot of matches. I know these players are already exhausted. I know we're thin squad anyway, right? All the injuries and all the context that we regularly share on this podcast. If you get 7 or 9 points, you're right behind Manchester United this week, just on the way that results go. You got 5, and you were lucky to get 3 of those 5, if we're just flat out honest. Like Sheffield United probably deserved to win this game based on the stats today, based on what you just shared, and based on the way that we played in the second half, which was terrible. I mean, you lose 2 to 10-man Burnley. It's bad, man. I mean, you're never going to have a better chance in this stretch of fixtures that we have through the end of the season to gain points on your, ninth, eighth, seventh, sixth place rivals. You're never going to have a better shot than this. And you drop 4 points to the 19th and 20th place teams in back-to-back weekends.
Yeah, look, there's more to this thread that we will go ahead and pull on, but we're going to take our first ad break. So when we get back, more about how we're losing points and even looking at Sheffield more specifically. So think of the sponsors, and we'll be right back. So again, with this result, right, that we have against Sheffield United, we talked about this going into it. Sheffield United have been pummeled by Brighton 5-0. They've been pummeled by Burnley 5-0, but then absolutely destroyed by Newcastle 8-0 and destroyed by Arsenal 6-0. Right? We knew going in that this is a team that is not clicking and just like flying high in any sense of the word. And if you look back before this, right, they played Liverpool, and the week before on April 4th, lose 3-1, drawing with Fulham. Like, this is not a great team. But with 3 changes, Nick, if you want to like point out the 3 changes, right, where Trev comes in, ends up playing left center back, Thiago Silva comes in, plays right center back, Disasi goes to right back. So there's a big shift in the back line there. Other than that, it's just Noni Madueke for essentially Mudryk at right wing.
Yep.
Largely the team is the same. So how we kind of ended up tripping all over ourselves in this one. Obviously, it went late and it was a bit of a scramble, but I would expect Thiago Silva, Trev Chalobah, and Noni Madueke to be able to suffocate and bury a team of this quality.
Yeah, I mean, in every Premier League season, I think where I started on the lineup here, just to kind of reverse it before we get into the horror show that was the play. You should be able to, as Chelsea Football Club, even with all of the injuries and players coming back in and out from different sorts of injury issues and stuff like that, you should be able to rotate against Sheffield United and win. They are historically bad. Like, this is not just a like Burnley level bad team that occasionally puts up a good result. They haven't put up a good result all season. You look at their points and where their points are coming from. This is not a team that's like really punching above their weight and just are unlucky. They're really, really bad. Really bad. They haven't been off the bottom of the table for ages. They've given up 80 plus goals. I mean, like, again, I refer to the stats because there are people out there who think that my narrative is just doom and gloom. They are horrific. I did the red side of Sheffield match preview for this game, and my man went through all the stats. I was like, holy shit, how are we going to lose to this team? We almost did.
Life found a way, Nick. Life found a way.
Honest to God, this is terrible. Like, they are just their player quality. Ollie McBurney is a nothing, nobody striker who just wants to go into have a boxing match with his opposition defenders. Like, there's zero class in this team, and yet when push came to shove, they shoved harder than we did. They pressed harder than we did. They wanted every loose ball more than we did. And if you're watching this as any sort of objective observer in this game, after about 20 minutes of our domination of the first half, it was as if Chelsea Football Club at this stage of the season thought, oh, 1 goal against Sheffield? Why don't we just take our foot off the gas here and just coast into a nice result? And they came through and hit us in the mouth. And they are not good. They are shit. It was a very bad game to watch. It was terrible across the board. But that is the scenario that we walked into with this lineup. Is we thought surely we can rotate a few players and still get a result. Cole Palmer, gassed. Conor Gallagher, gassed. Nico Jackson, gassed. Some very clear underperforms in this game. We couldn't get it done. without being at full strength against Sheffield. Why?
They've been in 20th place for 24 out of the 31 weeks, Dan. To Nick's point, these stats are historically bad for them with, 16 points. And that's with no points deductions, right? Everton, Nottingham Forest have been hit as
They
well.
didn't spend enough money to get into PSR problems.
They
Correct. Brought Wilder back to the club. I mean, it's just bad news bears for them.
they'll end up going down most likely as either the third or fourth worst performing Premier League side.
They're not Derby.
I remember Norwich.
Like,
Norwich had a really bad season too.
They're kind of that Huddersfield 18-19 range. Like that's where they're going to end up. They're not Derby, but they are very, very close to being one of the worst Premier League teams in history. And they were, as Nick said so eloquently, very close to walking away with a win and 3 points against us, which is absolutely defining where the standards have fallen to at this moment. And like I'm almost on like the verge of laughing about it because like I don't know how else to respond emotionally to this situation where you continue to watch it happen. You continue to see this evolve, and it's not a positive evolution. Like this is a de-evolution of what Chelsea is as a football club, what Chelsea are as a competitive side. When you have fewer shots on target, then a team that is going to struggle to get above, I would say, if they got to 40 goals at this point with 30 and they have 7 games left, that would be shocking. And we contributed 2 of the 30 that they have scored this season in one match, and could have been more.
Again, I brought up personnel. I don't really see that as an issue. Petrovic, could have, should have stayed on his near post instead of guessing. The second one is just ping pong, can't clear a ball. Badiashile misses a header. It just comes down to not being able to lock these matches out. And you look at the squad, and again, no reason not to. Sheffield also has a bunch of injuries as well. Now, I'm not going to pretend to say these are, important players to them or not, because I don't know. I do know Baldock has been around for them quite a while. So whatever, right? We are now realizing how important Levi Colwill is to this back line, whether it's left back or left center back. We are realizing our midfield is running out of steam very quickly. And the fact that Nkunku, Ogechukwu, Lavia, everyone is out is a problem. Cucurella is Cucurella. He's up and down, right? Got burned, which ended up leading to the first goal. It just happens. These are the players we have out that could make a difference, but I still find no excuse that we don't get a result. I don't care if it's on the road to this team. And the fact that we've dropped multiple points is really just unacceptable. And so after the match, Pochettino called the result fair. He said that a lot of the big players looked tired and said we still struggle to compete against these types of teams. Nick, Dan and I were talking about this quote before the pod. At first, we're like, oh, maybe lower level teams. We're like, well, we don't just struggle against them. We're like, maybe we should just widen the scope to any team in the Premier League. We seem to do pretty well against those championship teams, though. Like in the League Cup and the FA Cup. Maybe that is where we could do some damage. But the wild one to me says, quote, at 52 years old, you identify really quick whether the team is ready to compete or not. Maybe this group is not mature enough to compete in games every 3 days, end quote. He said you identify really quick. How quick? And how are we in the position 7 months later?
Yeah, define really quick. Because, yeah, whoa. Yeah, you're saying a lot without saying much there, for sure. I mean, look, if you've watched this team play football this year, you understand stuff that we've been talking about on the show that other people have been talking about, like Chicago Dimitri with his McGlockbot for a long time, which is that this team is not only statistically not good enough, but they are not good enough from a mentality or eye test perspective either. And it is scary to me that for all of the heartbreak in games that we've experienced this year, that there just does not seem to be anyone manager, players, whatever, that can go into a end of game scenario up 2-1, something that I'm sure every manager in the Premier League practices on a weekly basis. Here's a 2-1 scenario. You have to see out 5 minutes. Here's what's going to happen. There are going to be long balls. There are going to be set pieces. Here's what you have to do. And time and time and time again, you get into these scenarios, not just against Sheffield. I mean, you think about all the rest of these scenarios that we've gone through this year. And this team simply does not have the focus or attention to detail or talent or skill, whatever it is, to see games out that they are winning. That, like, they've done the hard job. They've got the winning goal in the bank, and all they need to do is something that we as Chelsea fans are so used to seeing Chelsea teams do, Dan, which is just see the game out. Obi Mikel on, John Terry directing traffic. Everyone knows their role. Everyone understands their responsibility. It's just not happening at all.
You had people clamoring for Thiago Silva to come back in the lineup, scored a really nice set piece goal, something that
Great
Chelsea
goal.
struggled to do. A few minutes later, has a really interesting pass. If you take Bill Silva's tweet of "Thank you God" out of context, if you read it when that happened, very
smart,
interesting view of it on how it could be perceived. I think it's just a matter of, like, now we're getting to the point where the cracks that you're seeing in individual player performances, the errors, the slip ups, the gaffes are now migrating to talking about the players not being mentally tough enough or ready to go. And like, that is something that, if you want to argue about things that are within Pochettino's control and things that are outside of Pochettino's control, Pochettino controls whatever his answer is to the questions that he has provided in those press conferences. Can't control the questions that gets asked, but he can control his answers to them. And what this team needs and has continued to need is to be a team and not a group of individuals or the Cole Palmer show, because that's who it is right now. Like, Cole Palmer has absolutely saved Pochettino from having a historically bad season at Chelsea. And so with that in mind, to say something like that about your group of players who, rightly or wrongly, deserve some level of criticism and blame into the result today and the results over the course of the season is so misguided. The self-owns from every level of this organization right now are all-timers. They're all-time bad for this club. And, like, again, I'm saying this is someone who tries to be extremely positive and look for the bright side of things. And there's just not a lot of bright light coming out of Chelsea at the moment, Brandon.
Understood. Not to open this box of worms, I do just want to end it by saying, like, if it really was a 4-2-3-1 and, Connor was our left mid, who quite obviously played as a center mid and left a huge gap for Cucurella and Nico Jackson to try to fill on that left side. The fact that it was really a glorified back three because Disasi didn't go forward, at all, and Madueke was pushing the line. There was a lot of imbalances within this group that, again, I don't know why we made that change instead of sticking with kind of that 4-3-3 with a traditional Connor and Enzo and Caicedo back there. But again, just to me, unnecessary changes, because a 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3, it's not like the same players were there, right? But the fluidity and the lack of spacing. I just pulled up the McGlock app and looked at the average positioning with this group, and it is so imbalanced and just gross that that just reminded me, as you guys were talking about it, of like unnecessary changes again by Poch in this situation. So we're going to take a last break, but we've got a little bit more to cover, I promise. We're mainly going to be looking at the European dream and if it's still a dream or if it's a nightmare and it's all over. So thank you to sponsors. I'll be right back. So with these results and everything that's come our way, again, Dan, you and I kept talking. It's like this season still has the potential to, like, get into Europa League, but it's had that potential for so long. We still have a chance somehow to win silverware, albeit we have to get through City and the FA Cup semifinals, so it's going to be tough. But again, this season has always, like, had this glimmer of hope, and the fact that if I told people that we're actually unbeaten in the last 7 Premier League matches, people are probably going to be surprised to hear that. The good trend, Dan, is that we've stopped losing. The bad trend is we're still not winning, having drawn 4 of those 7 with the win against Crystal Palace. Then we beat Newcastle, and then we beat Manchester United. The rest of them draws, and then we're on that. So, from your perspective, if we would have won today, we would have been 1 point off kind of the Europa League spots, miscued that. How do you view the rest of the season, the Premier League, in terms of like, what can we still accomplish?
I mean, we've got a tough rest of the month. I mean, you had an opportunity to net some really major points against poor opposition, and
Burnley,
you get
Sheffield. Burnley,
yeah.
burn that into your ears, everybody.
I mean, look, the Brighton match still needs to be rescheduled because of the FA Cup semifinal, but you have Everton, you have Arsenal, and Aston Villa the rest of this month. So not necessarily a favorable run of fixtures for the remainder of this month. And then you close out the season in the league, Tottenham at home, West Ham at home, Forest away, Bournemouth at home. So I mean, you have an opportunity. Like the thing is, like as crazy as this Premier League season has been, as bad as it has been, like mathematically, Chelsea's not out of it. The issue is that Chelsea can't get out of their own way to take advantage of the opportunity. They take advantage of Manchester United struggling against this Liverpool team, or things of that nature, right? Like where there have been opportunities to say we can go forward, we can advance, we can take a step forward. We actually are the beneficiaries of going into 9th off of 10th position because Brighton played poorly. And so there have been opportunities time and time again to advance up this table and to almost backdoor into it. And I think that's actually the crazy thing, Nick, is that with the amount of chances we've had to actually advance up the table based upon how bad the luck has been for other teams, it's actually that we can't take advantage of pretty much any golden opportunity we've gotten to climb a rung. We're just kind of moving up and moving back and moving up and moving back. We can't put our hand around that next rung and take the step up the table.
Yeah, I mean, we've done this, and I think at the end of the season, I'll do an analysis to show how many opportunities we missed to climb the table throughout the year, because I think it's just a worthwhile story. Again, you look at Newcastle, West Ham, Brighton, Manchester United. Those are the teams that have largely been in front of us for most of the season. None of those teams are special. None of them are good. None of them are playing above themselves or any sort of anything. In fact, I would argue most of them are way below their own standard. Maybe West Ham is about at their peak or about at their maximum. Maybe that is. I think Brighton's about where they should be. I think Newcastle was always going to struggle this year because European football takes a hell of a lot out of you, and they found that out for the first time this year, and they got burned by it. Manchester United is a shell of themselves. They're terrible. I mean, the fact that Spurs are so far clear of them and Villa are clear of Spurs just tells you about like the quality in the mid-table here. Like it's not very good. And I think the analysis will be shocking to let Chelsea fans know at the end of the year how many times we could have climbed into those spots that we want to be a part of. It's going to hurt for sure. I mean, what else hurts to me is the fact that our last clean sheet, because these things matter, in the league was against Fulham on January 13th. That's about 3.5 months ago, 4 months ago now, something like that. That's tough. 3 months, no clean sheets. Cool, that's fine. But what if you only give up 1 goal? Right? You can win 2-1, right? No problem. Our last time giving up 1 goal in a league game was against Manchester City on the 17th of February. In a game that was absolutely crazy, and we lauded the team for heroic performance. The rest of it has been either us losing or giving up more than 2 goals. I mean, do you want to see where we'd be if we only gave up 1 goal in those matches? I mean, look, guy, like the stats are what they are. Like you give up 2 goals to Sheffield United, you give up 3 goals to Manchester United, 2 goals to Burnley, 2 goals to Leicester City, and they had a red card in that game. 2 goals to Newcastle, 2 goals to Brentford, 2 goals to Leeds United, lose to Liverpool in extra time, 1-1 Man City. That's how far back we have to go. So, I mean, like the source of where we would be in this table at this point in the season is not about the goals that we're scoring, although I would argue that we could and should be more clinical in the goals that we're scoring. I think we've scored enough goals. You're giving up shit goals all the time to teams who aren't very good. I mean, that Brandon, this is the story of the season. It's a very bad defense, and that's getting worse somehow. I mean, they're shipping goals like crazy.
You're not wrong about it. It's getting worse. It's the big trend, right? You know, like I've said this on the last pod. Sanchez, I think he was like up for player of the month or something. You know, he had 3 clean sheets in like an October run or something like that before he got injured. You know, but we've done it in spurts, but really turn of the year fallen off in a big way, I would say. You know, we had a lot more red cards in the fall, if you guys remember that, against Newcastle, then against Brighton. You know, we had obviously some issues there, but like losing Reece James, losing Levi Colwell, like constantly.
Chilwell.
What?
Chilwell too.
Losing
I mean,
Chilwell. Yeah. Like these are things that obviously affect it. And you know, I'm assuming Gusto was rested today. I didn't see Poch's quotes about it, but
he was ill.
Yeah,
like 2 days before the game, so they rested him.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, he's held his hamstring, strained it before, so like this was the match to do it. But like, I guess we're getting to the point where there needs to be some accountability, right? Especially if this European dream is potentially off and this team just can't get it across the line. Is it Poch? Is it sporting directors? Anyone who is going to be held accountable for the second dismal season, right? Last year, the managers ended up taking the fall, right? Now I'm starting to wonder 2 years on, does it need to go up a level? All right. Will it even happen? I don't think anything will happen, Dan, in the middle of the season, just the way the owners seem to be. But my word, the way things are going, the owners are going to be forced to do something again, which means drastic changes in 2 out of 2 seasons. The fact that, I mean, the FA Cup final is what saves everyone's skin, and I don't see us getting past Man City. The only thing is they are in a very tight Premier League title race. So again, for them, how is that going to affect them? But I could also see not Poch, but Guardiola heavily rotating regardless, just because that's his ethos, and would expect them to go out and beat us, and they probably would.
I don't necessarily think the opposition or the players on the other side is the issue. It's the players in our own camp that are the issue. And so, yeah, it's gotten really untenable. I think for the sporting directors who continue to exist in behind the curtain, much like the mythical Oz or Oz's, and they're trying to sell the idea of a yellow brick road to take us to a happier place and a place of opportunity for all that just doesn't really exist within the current infrastructure. And I don't know if they can give Pochettino what he needs, which would be time or more senior players who could help execute what he's trying to do. I don't know if Pochettino has earned the right for another season, given how this season has played out. And I think there was a lot of early to mid-season excuses or reasoning, however you want to look at it. If you're very Poch out, you're very much like, it's an excuse. I don't like those excuses. If you're more on the lukewarm to wait and see side of the fence, maybe you're looking at it as a reason. Injuries notwithstanding, players arriving in late, unavailability of certain key individuals. But I think you have to see over the remainder of these games, and I think it's the remainder of the games in April. I don't necessarily think you can get into May and think I'm going to go hire or we're going to go hire a new manager for next season in May when you have a U.S. summer tour coming up at the end of July. I think when I mentioned it a couple days ago, we're close to about 100 days between now and when Chelsea are in U.S. soil executing on the summer tour. If you're going to have a new manager in and they're going to want to input a system, they're going to want to bring in different players, if they're going to have opinions on who we keep, who we sell, who we get rid of, that conversation most likely should already be happening with whomever those individuals are that you believe are the candidates that you want to go after. Or you have to come out and say, and this would be the most unpopular thing that you could say, I think, right now in this moment, that like, hey, Pochettino's our guy next season, which I think would be extremely misguided to say without knowing what's happening in the rest of this month, because this could be a really rough end of the season for him, even if things started breaking his way, given who Chelsea have to play the remainder of this month.
I mean, I don't. I've been very neutral on the manager situation because I think the hand that was dealt was a tough hand. And I think we all accepted after last year that this was just not going to be an easy year by any means. I think there are some things that were out of his control that made his job very challenging. And I think we all have to be honest about that. That it's, I think in addition to some of the stuff that he should own and be responsible for, that there's been some stuff that is just tough, injuries or some things that are tough. That, I think any honest broker would say the manager doesn't have a ton to do with injuries. That's more of a medical recovery department thing. But I think one thing that I have come to over the last couple of months is that, I can forgive not knowing the personnel that well at the beginning of the season or just getting to know their strengths and weaknesses and stuff like that. But unlike other teams that have used multitudes of players, I have not seen our players, what I would, respectfully, call our substitute players coming into matches, into situations. I have not seen them grow like other teams' players have. I've not seen our manager deploy a system that takes into account the stretched nature of his midfield, of which he's had 3 healthy midfielders for most of the season. I have not seen him deploy a defensive system that says, fuck the high press. I know that's what I'd love to do if all things were equal, but I know I can't do it because of the personnel that I have at my disposal. I haven't seen this team play smart in some time. And I think that is something to take into account. Now, I'm not calling for anyone's head here, but I think if you look at what Gary O'Neill's done at Wolves this season with much less in the cabinet than what we have at Chelsea, you'd see a manager make the best meal with the available ingredients in his cupboard. Have we truly done that this year? That's a question I'm asking anyone who's listening to this podcast. Is there one match where you're like, man, we really made the best possible meal with the ingredients in our cupboard? Answer that for yourselves. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is, but that would now be my criteria, because I do not believe that we're going to end this season any better than where we are right now, which is 9th.
Look, there's got to be some accountability with everything that, you both have said. The StatMuse FC putting out the fact that we've led 10 times in their last 9 matches and we lost all 10 leads. Poch is trying to say it's a maturity issue with the team.
Of course, I mean, by the way, it is. That's true, but come on, it's not just that.
The sporting directors put the players in, so he's hedging against. We're starting to get that positioning. This is the reality, right? Of where we're at. At our worst, we were 15th, but that was the second week of the season. We've largely been 10th, right, for the majority of the season. We got rowdy and went up to 9th in game week 29 or in 21. Up.
Do you remember those good times, Brandon?
Up again thanks to goal difference. But this has largely been a bad season. And, I guess I'm interested to see how this ownership manages this. Are they going to continue to change coaches, or do they go up a level? And it seems like those co-sporting directors and, they have a lot of weight within the owners. So we'll see. We're going to continue to probe Matt Law on this stuff. We're going to talk to Naz coming up, but it's getting to the point of this season where, again, I don't think anything's going to happen during the season, but they need to be ready and starting to come up with contingency plans, because this is not good enough. Especially just because it could have been so much better. I think last season was just a disaster for so many different reasons. This season, there's no reason we should be barely in 9th. Like, with everything that's gone on in the league and the way the results have gone, like, this team should easily be in a Europa League position, the way things have played out. And it's just, that's the most frustrating thing, where I think people have just become like apathetic, no care, no feeling. I saw Clayton Bierman tweeted it: win, lose, draw, don't care over this team, because it doesn't do anything anymore. There's no more connection, emotion, reaction, because it's been a long, underwhelming season week after week, unfortunately. So,
well, and a lot of it is the same pattern week after week. I mean, you just said, the last 10 leads we've lost them all, or 9 out of the last 10 leads we've lost. I mean, where is the killer instinct? Where is the lockdown defense once you're in the 80th plus minute and you're up a goal? Like, what? Some of these things, like, are not a lot to ask for. Like, teams like Wolves and Bournemouth can do it, but we can't for some reason. And I bring them up because they're our peers right now. They are our peers in the mid-table. Like, I'm not bringing up Liverpool or Arsenal or City or any of the top teams. Like, mid-table teams see out games all the time. That's how they stay mid-table. And we simply, from a winning position, which we were today, which we were against Burnley, which we were against United, and then we finally got back there on kind of a fluke. Like, from a winning position, we are nowhere. I'd almost rather be tied than be in a winning position, because this team seemingly plays harder when the match is tied. Like, it is crazy to me that they can't implement a plan effectively like this.
Look, unfortunately, that's led us to no Dane of the match for obvious gross reasons. Noni was looking good there for a second. So we just skip ahead to the other results from the weekend. Man City beating Crystal Palace 4-2. Villa Brentford drawing 3-3. Everton beating Burnley 1-0. Another red card for Burnley. Fulham 0, Newcastle 1, Luton 2, Bournemouth 1, Wolves 1, West Ham 2, Brighton 0, Arsenal 3, Man United, Liverpool drawing 2-2, and then Tottenham beating Forest 3-1. So if you look up above us in the table, Dan, Newcastle got 3 points, West Ham got 1, United got 1, Villa got 1. Now Tottenham Hotspur in 4th, Villa are down to 5th, which is an ugly look for us, but they're even on points, so the goal difference will come up at some point. But Arsenal in 1st as it stands on 71 points, Liverpool down to 2nd, also on 71 points, City 3rd on 70 points. Again, as I was saying, that is our only catch. As long as City are in it, they might, punt the FA Cup, but I highly doubt it. But again, everyone above us getting points, and it was the perfect chance for us to go from 43 points to 46, but we're stuck on 44 in 9th.
Yeah, very different week. Again, I think we beat it home in this episode, but ultimately this Chelsea team could have had such a better season with one goal not going in, with a little bit more, with any less errors. I mean, it's really just unfortunate when you see, how bad United were in allowing Liverpool to come back into that game. West Ham, we've got games in hand. We've had opportunities. We continue to have opportunities. And the question is, with 9 to 10 matches left to go, will you take your opportunities and will we have a happier end of the season, or will we most likely at this point land somewhere in that 7 to 9 range, miss out on a European Conference League spot by a spot and 1 or 2 points and wonder what could you have done differently over 38 matches to have manufactured that 1 extra point? It's going to be a lot of opportunities.
You had this, the math was there just for this week, right? If you would have won 7 out of 9, I'm not even suggesting that we win all 3, because I think we can all say pretty conclusively the United result was a crapshoot. So let's just take United as a draw, from a win to a draw, but you beat Burnley and you beat Sheffield United. You get 7 points instead of 5. You'd be on 46 points, right behind Newcastle. You have 1 game in hand in Newcastle and 2 games in hand on West Ham. Feeling pretty fucking good, aren't you? You're feeling pretty damn good that you have what you need to usurp them. And Manchester United is on 49 points. So you'd be, you'd be 3 points behind them with a game in hand. Like 6 is so gettable. It is so gettable, man. It really is. And that's just by beating the 19th and 20th place teams in the league and drawing to Manchester United. That's where the math leaves you.
Look, United's only won 1 out of the last 5. West Ham's only won 1 out of the last 5. Again, they took an Olympico to get a point today. Newcastle's won 3 out of 5, and we're undefeated in 5 with 2 wins. So again, even with the form that's there, but Brighton in 10th below us, they're on 43 points. They're only 1 behind us, right? Wolves on 42, Bournemouth on 41. Like, not to look below, but like there's pressure on both sides here. And so Chelsea, having a game in hand is good. Brighton are not having a good run of it, having won 1 of their last 5 as well. But again, for whatever reason, Brighton and De Zerbi and Chelsea, Caicedo, all that fun stuff, it'll just add something to it. So we can't just take that and plug in 3 points by any means. So it's Everton, right? Everton is who we're taking on this weekend. And again, same thing, 1 win in their last 5, lost their last 3, right? 29 points. This is a team that we should go and beat. They got a hilarious win at the weekend with that terrible goalkeeping from Luton to kick it right into him and rolls in the back of the net or whatever it was. But it's more of the same, right? Burnley, not Luton, but Burnley. Yeah. So it's just like we've got to just bury these teams that are down there. I mean, they're 15th on 29 points. Gotta get up there, because Newcastle played Tottenham, so really good chance they drop points. West Ham apparently taking on Fulham. I feel like they just played each other. And then United take on Bournemouth. United are going to win. So we have another good chance this weekend to at least go level on points with Newcastle United. But hey, Nick, it's been a season of what if, what could have been, and yet here we are in 9th place, sitting in a very uncomfortable, sweaty, stale situation.
Just where you like to be. Ugh. Sweaty and stale.
Awesome.
Not the right type of tropical vibes for the end of the season that we were hoping for.
Not so much. No. All right. Well, hey, we're going to continue to dig in. We're going to be here. More content coming at you this week, as always. I know I'll be doing a Cobham crew with Phil. We've got some more results with him and Parth, as well as much more content, because the games are still flowing. So anyways, that's going to wrap us up. If you need some friends, get into Discord. Want to encourage you to find some friends there. But until next time, Chelsea fans, you know what to do. Keep the blue flag flying high.